I know when I was in school, we had 6 guys and 36 girls in our class, which we were a little more skewed than some of the classes, but consistently every single class recently has been 50% or more women. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I think it's not just our profession that's like that, right? Medical school is like that too. They graduate more women than men these days. I just think the opportunities are across the board, and just more people are finding that voice and finding what they're passionate about, and that you can have everything. You may not have it all at once, but you can. And I have 2 kids that are 8 and 5. My husband right now is at home with them. So, people always talk about work-life balance. Well, I think that's honestly like complete bullshit. It's work-life juggle, there's always balls in the air, but it's so rewarding. And so I think that the opportunities have come, and we've said yes.
I mean, just re-emphasizing what you said, it's not just optometry. We think about optometry is going so female, but more women than men are going on to college after they're graduating high school. Last year, 2017, was the first time the American Medical School Association reported 50.7% of their enrollees was female. The first time women ever were the majority in entering medical school. And so this is a story across all professional careers. Women are interested in further education. We're interested in healthcare, and optometry is just a reflection of that trend in our general world.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it starts not only with a professional level, but even just on the standard university level. We're seeing that more and more with undergraduates as well, too, which is really phenomenal. And I feel like there's a small disconnect, though, between all of the graduates that are coming out and what we're seeing on the scale of our leadership within optometry. Would you agree with that? What areas do you feel like, obviously, Selena, you're changing that? Which is really wonderful to see. But, you look at lecture lists and you look at, shows like Vision Expo, and there's ratio-wise, it's very male-dominated still. Is that an area that you feel like we should change?
Absolutely. We bring a lot to the table. And I don't know that it's not intentional, because I'm encouraged by lots of our male peers. They're actually the ones that are pushing me. Dr. Morris is one, Dr. Gaddy's one. Lots of people are behind me saying, you can do this, step up to the plate. So I do think that, but I think part of it too maybe is just because the trend now is more women, but maybe we just haven't gotten quite to that level yet, because a lot of the lecturers and a lot of the people on the speaking circuit, as well as in leadership positions, do tend to have more birthdays. So maybe it's just that reflection that we just haven't quite caught up in those arenas yet. Yeah. We'll get there.
Yeah, I agree.
And then there's clearly a shortage of female representation when we go to conferences. Okay, you can look at the speaker list and notice there's nobody that looks like me there, right? At the same time, when we think about it, how many of us are submitting courses? How many of us feel confident enough in our own skills and our expertise that we're putting ourselves out there? So, and that's the thing about these classes. You don't get asked to come speak, right? You submit the courses, you do the work, and then that course gets selected. So I think it's all about, some of these shortages are really just that we aren't as confident in our abilities and we're not putting ourselves out there. So more of us need to submit courses to be visible here.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you look at studies in general, women versus men, women tend to want to be an expert on what they're doing before they say yes to something. And men, on the other hand, and this has been studied, this is not, so it's real, it's real data.
Yeah, for sure.
They will say yes before they actually fully maybe know the content or fully feel comfortable with it. So, sometimes you just have to step out there. And I always one of my mantras is, nothing good happens in your comfort zone. The magic happens outside of your comfort zone, and you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with everything that you said, because, there's a glass ceiling that's perceived that I don't think is actually there. Like you said, there's so many male figures within optometry that would love nothing more than to see all of us succeed, and all of the women coming behind us and in front of us too. But we don't tend to put ourselves out there and take that risk, because very much what I think is that we are afraid to fail, and we're afraid to look like we don't know what we're doing, and we don't realize that just taking that courageous step to be up there is something more than anyone else in the audience is doing, and they're going to respect you for that regardless. So try it. If you're going to polish it every time you do it, but you're so right. Men do tend to jump in a little bit more head first while we're like, let's plan it out a little bit first. Let me put it in my bullet journal. I'll figure it out. So
it's almost like dating a little bit. Like as a girl, you're like you wait till you get asked out.
Yeah.
You can't wait
We're
in
not gonna be
optometry.
asked.
We're not going to get asked. You just sit down at the table and you do it.
Courage 5 seconds at a time. That's all it takes. Courage
Exactly.
5 seconds at a time.
Exactly. And I think one thing that we also forget is you can partner with somebody. We were talking about that earlier. You don't have to do it by yourself. And if you're maybe a little bit afraid to speak, first of all, start with writing. Get your name out there a little bit, make those connections. You'll start to feel a little more confident in your knowledge, and then you can start to share it on a different scale. And it doesn't have to be a Vision Expo or any of those kind of meetings first, right? You've got state association meetings, you've got local meetings. Just ask, and almost always you're going to find somewhere, right? So what do you think is the biggest challenge that we face as women coming into a professional setting like optometry?
For me, and I know we were talking about, is the glass ceiling real? I believe that it is. We, consciously or not, there are barriers that we are facing in pay gap quite clearly. We see these studies reported over and over again. And review of optometry last year for new graduate doctors, 10 years or less out of school, working full-time. So this is not looking at differences between part-time workers or full-time workers, which is typically what pay gaps are blamed on in optometry. There's 11% pay gap between men and women with the exact same amount of experience. So the pay gap is real, and I think we need to recognize that and then also recognize why. Why is that existing? It's existing in other medical careers too. This is not an optometry specific problem. In all aspects of healthcare, there's a pay gap. Medical has a 10% pay gap as well.
Yeah, I think when you're speaking about that, that's another area that we could probably take a little bit of a learning moment from the male side of it, because typically, as a generalization, most men are a little more confident to go to their practice owner, go to whomever and say, look, after a year, I'm going to get this raise. We're going to negotiate out something that works for both of us. And at this time period, that's going to happen. Women, on the other hand, take a little more of the have I earned it approach. I don't want to step on toes. Have I really gotten to that point yet? And we don't push for ourselves. We're not our own advocate as much as we should be. And I think that stretches across all of that. So I agree with you. I think that the pay scale is something that as a society we have to work on, but it's something that we have to push for ourselves too.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at studies on negotiations, men are more typically forward, and so we do have to have a voice and bring that to the table. What's the worst they're going to say? No? And? I mean, I've been told no so many times it's like my middle name. But those conversations have to start, and role play it. Take a class on negotiating. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Ask a mentor, somebody that's in a position that you want to be in, or that you have a voice, or you bring something to the table. Ask them how they did it. They're more than happy to share. I'm more than happy to share. There's so many people that will help us do that. We just have to ask.
There was a study done recently that kind of gauged women's satisfaction with their career in optometry. I think the results were a little bit shocking to me and definitely disappointing to me. For those of you that haven't read that study, over 40%, I think 46%,
46,
said that they would not choose optometry again if they were given the choice. I find that really sad. That hurts my heart, because it's something that I would absolutely choose again and continue to mold and change my career every single day. So, one, why do you think that is, and how do we change it?
So I looked at the study, and I was like you. When I read it, I was A, shocked, and B, heartbroken that so many of our counterparts are suffering. And so I dug into, what the answer was. And most of the answers actually were, it seemed more about the type and the mode of practice and just vertical integration of optometry and the things that we all face with corporate and, not being able to dictate our own hours, and just a lot of things around, insurance benefits, we're answering to those kinds of things. So it was more about just the industry in it of itself. It wasn't actually about being female. So I think that we might see the same thing if we ask our male counterparts.
That's a good point.
And so I don't know that it's truly unique to women. I think it may be across the industry, and that was just what came out of it. That was my take on what happened with that study.
That absolutely my takeaway from this too. So I think when we entered optometry school, we had a picture of what being an optometrist was like. And I know for me, my hometown optometrist saw one patient an hour. He was all cash pay. He had a dog in his office, and like 3 horses. It just seemed like the best lifestyle ever, right? We always talk about work-life balance as being like what attracts women to optometry. What are jobs looking like today in optometry? It doesn't look like that. It's not the career that the path we thought. And so I think that the problem that many people are dissatisfied is because they're going out and the jobs that they're choosing or pursuing in optometry, because they're the ones that are hiring, they're the ones that are paying more right away, are not the rewarding jobs that they thought they would be. And what I think that means to us, we need to, one, really think about the jobs and the career opportunities that we're taking and not accept opportunities that are actually not providing the lifestyles we want. And if that means more of us are opening up private practices or negotiating harder to get the hours that we want and the vacation days we want, we all need to commit to doing that to, as a group, make optometry a better workplace.
Yeah, 100%. I think without being, again, our own advocate, you're not ever going to be happy in what you're doing. It doesn't matter if it's optometry or photography or whatever you chose to do with your life. If you're not doing it the way that you want to do it, you're not going to be happy. But the beauty of what's happening right now is you can make that whatever you want it to be. You don't have to be in the office 5 days a week. You can write, you could lecture, you could go in for 2 days and do sports vision and then turn around and 2 days later, do contacts, and then whatever you want it to be, it can be. And that's a very empowering thing that I think if people take that by the reins, that number would change drastically. So just to kind of close out, what would be your biggest piece of advice for women who are considering getting into the professional field, specifically optometry, and women in optometry school looking to make a career that they enjoy?
So, for me, I think a lot of people assume that we couldn't get into other professions. I think there's a misnomer of that, well, I couldn't get into med school, so I had to go to optometry school. That's so not true. I chose this profession. I chose it because I love it, because I spent time in it, because I worked in an optometry office for a couple of months. I literally had never been exposed to it, worked there, applied to undergrad where NSU is. I'd never been to the town of Tahlequah, drove my happy ass 3,000 miles across the country, found an apartment 2 weeks before school started, enrolled, and 16 years later, it worked out really well for me. So again, it's getting outside that comfort zone, and you can make this profession whatever you want to make it. I do live in Oklahoma, and I stand on the shoulders of giants, of people that have created this for me, but I push the envelope too. You guys know I do aesthetics in Oklahoma, so I'm one of the only optometrists in the country that's standalone, that's doing Botox and injections and fillers and bringing that whole pillar of what we can offer to our patients, and we should. We're the most trained to do that. That doesn't come easy. That was a year-long process of fighting and people telling me, no, you can't do this, and winning one battle of the board saying, yes, you can, and the industry telling me, no, you can't, and I fought for another 6 months to get that done. But I didn't do that alone. There's people in the industry that helped me. There's other doctors that helped me get there. So you can do this. You can make it whatever you want. You just have to go for it. So if you're unhappy, if you don't like what you're doing, do not walk, run and do something different and change it.
I totally agree with everything that you just said, because we think optometry looks a certain way in this little closed box. The truth is, now more so than ever, there's so many different tracks and career paths and specialties that you can take. There's so much more opportunity, and with new technology being invented, we haven't even dreamed of what optometry can do in 5 more years, right? So it's a time for innovation more than anything else. My other word of advice is think about, for any career, if you're motivated specifically by paycheck, will you ever be truly happy with your job if money is the most important part of it, right? So that can't be your motivating reason for optometry.
exactly right.
Instead, let's think about like what does an optometrist do every day that's uniquely us? And for me, that's talking to patients one-on-one. It's creating those personal relationships. There's literally no other healthcare profession where the entire point of what you're doing is person-to-person communication and unique discussions. With every other medical profession, they're either in your mouth so you can't talk, or put to sleep and you're cutting them open, and when they're back awake, they're out of there. So we have a unique opportunity to make real relationships with people. And for me, that's why optometry was interesting. So if that inspires you, you're going to love optometry.
Yeah, and I actually think that's one of the reasons that women are rock stars in optometry, because we can make those relationships really powerful. My point would be echoing very similarly to y'all. Optometry literally can be anything that you want it to be. And when you come to shows like this, you see the innovation and you see the technology and you see the ways that companies are wanting to change this space. Why not be that person to let them change it, right? Why not do aesthetics? Why not find the thing that you love, make that what you focus on, and then you're going to be passionate. It's not going to be work. You're going to enjoy. That doesn't mean you don't work hard to do it, but that means that you get up every day and you know why you're doing it and you're happy doing that. The reason I left my practice before was I started waking up and not being happy to go to work. And that was not a life I wanted to live 4 years out of residency. I made a change. I love getting up and going to work now. I love the patient relationships. But it took me being like, I'm going to take a leap, so let's do it. My biggest piece of advice to close, though, would be find a mentor. All of us are more than happy to do it. We love making connections. We love helping in optometry. We love helping people in general. There's so many other people that do in our world too, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a woman. It could be a male mentor. There's so many powerhouses that just want to help and want to make a difference, that don't be afraid to ask for that.
One last just parting thing, if somebody asks you to do something, say yes. Even
Always
if you
say
don't
yes.
have time, if you think, I'm not qualified to do this, I don't know, I'm scared, just say yes.
You don't know what you like till you try it, right?
That's how we all got here, right? We said yes at some point, and then we kept saying yes, and then, cool, here we are on Facebook Live.
Exactly. So if you want to get in touch with us, you absolutely can. My email is patricia@covalentcareers.com.
I am Jen Lyerly at, okay, Instagram at idolatry, EYE.DOLATRY, or at Defocus Media. Either way is a great way to get in touch with me.
Perfect. And my email address is my name, Selina, SELINARM @Yahoo.
Perfect. Thank y'all.